Welcome to my weekly Parsha share. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Parshas Kedoshim. Thank you so much to Aaron and Lillian Fuchs and to Jason Fuchs for sponsoring this week's Parsha share in memory of Lillian's father, Irving Glatter, Yitzchok ben Dovber, Zichron Livrocha, whose yahrzeit is on the 29th of Nisan. May his neshama have an aliyah, may we be zeicha to see Tchias HaMesim. I wanted to begin by sharing the words that set the stage for our discussion today, the opening words of Parshas Kedoshim. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe Lemor, Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael v'amarta alehem, Kedoshim Tiheyu ki Kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem. And God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the entire community of Israel and tell them, you must be holy, for I, Hashem, your God, am holy." This powerful message from God to Moses lays down the foundation for the entire community of Israel, the Jewish nation, to strive for holiness in their daily lives. It is a call to action, urging the people to embody the values and principles of their faith and to live in accordance with the laws and teachings of the Torah. But the significance of the passage is further emphasized by the fact that it was delivered publicly to the entire community. Unlike other teachings, other mitzvahs that were passed down through a chain of transmission. Moshe and Aaron told the Zakenim, the elders, who told the heads of the tribes, who passed it on to the heads of the families, and so on. But this message of Kedoshim Tiheyu was meant for everyone to hear at the same time. Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael v'amarta alehem. This important distinction, unique to the mitzvah of Kedoshim Tiheyu, highlights the importance of collective responsibility. But more importantly, it hones in on the idea that the pursuit of holiness is not an individual endeavor, but a communal effort. By making sure that this mitzvah was addressed to the entire community of Israel at one time, God emphasized the needs for unity and cooperation in achieving the ultimate goal of holiness. Another thing worth noting is that the use of the term Kedoshim in the opening quote is very significant. Kedoshim doesn't only mean holy, it also means set apart or separate. In fact, as I've said many times before in my shiurim and divrei Torah, that is the true meaning of Kadosh, holy. To be holy means to be set apart. The Jewish people are a chosen nation with a unique and special relationship with God. They are by their very nature set apart. By striving for holiness, the people are doing their duty together as the chosen nation, setting themselves apart from the ordinariness of the rest of the world and fulfilling their role as a light unto the nations. This is a powerful and empowering message that has reverberated throughout Jewish history. Interestingly, the Medrash provides a fascinating insight into this idea that actually conflicts with what I've just said. The Medrash suggests that the reason why this message of Kedoshim Tiheyu was delivered publicly in a gathering of all the Jewish people is because it was and is a fundamental and essential teaching for all of humanity, not just the Jews. Unlike other teachings that were passed down through a specific chain of transmission among the Jewish people, this message is meant for everyone to hear and to learn from. The pursuit of holiness is not limited to the Jewish people. It is a universal concept that applies to all individuals. This idea of universal holiness is further supported by the phrase Ki Kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem. By emphasizing that God is holy, the message becomes clear that holiness is not just a moral code to follow for a specific group of people. In fact, it is an essential aspect of God's nature, and as humans, we are called, indeed expected, to emulate and strive for holiness in our own lives in order to be closer to God and fulfill our purpose in this world. In other words, the concept of holiness is not just limited to the Jewish community, it is a universal message, and it resonates with and is relevant to individuals of all backgrounds and faiths. I think the most important aspect of Kedoshim Tiheyu being delivered as a message to Kahal Adas Yisrael, the entire community, is that being Kadosh is not an individual pursuit, but a communal pursuit. And the bigger and broader that community of Kadosh seekers, the more we have fulfilled that mitzvah. The fact is, this powerful message has been passed down for generations and has stood the test of time, inspiring people to strive for a higher standard. We are all interconnected, and our actions have an impact on those around us. The point is, true holiness cannot be achieved in isolation. It requires collective vision, a community striving together towards greater ideals. When we hear such a call together, it inspires us to aspire to be better, to be greater, to achieve more. In isolation, we're inward looking and limited. With others around us who have the same ideals, the sky is literally the limit. In fact, the Shemoneh Tov explains that a person cannot be holy alone. If everyone around us is materialistic, even if we have the highest aspirations, it's incredibly tough for an individual to maintain restraint. That is why the entire community needed to hear this call to holiness together. It's about creating a supportive environment where holiness can thrive. Our society sometimes forgets the value of restraint, of measured, thoughtful living, of letting things go, of doing without, so that we can devote more time to growth, personal growth, spiritual growth, to spirituality, to purity, to our faith, to being selfless and caring, and so much more. And just reflect on how different it would be if everyone around us also aimed for this type of holiness. How would our choices change if our community, collectively, aimed to live more thoughtfully? Kedoshim Tiheyu must be a constant reminder to strive for self-improvement and to fulfill our purpose in this world. It's not just about following the laws and rules of the Torah and of Halacha, but also about living a morally upright life among others who do the same thing, so that we can all grow together. And think about this: true leadership, faith leadership, moral leadership, inspirational leadership comes from those who maximize the spiritual potential, the holiness potential of those they lead. The journey towards holiness is not just an individual one, but one that involves the power of community. And any leader understands that being a super person when everyone around them, especially people they lead, is not living to these high ideals, they know that their own holiness will suffer and decline. When we come together as a collective, each person's efforts towards holiness are amplified through the others around them who are influenced and improved. The impact of such a collective endeavor is transformative. It has the power to create a ripple effect, spreading holiness and positivity, not just within our families and neighborhoods, but beyond. This is the true power of community and the potential it holds for creating a better world for all. Holiness is contagious, and by embodying these values, we can inspire a positive and transformative change in the world. We have had many such leaders in Jewish history, men and women, who ensured that the world around them lived up to the highest ideals, and they always succeeded in changing the narrative and the course of history. One such person was Rav Samson Raphael Hirsch, a shining example of the transformative power of elevating the values and behavior of the community one is charged with leading. When Rav Hirsch arrived in Frankfurt in 1848, he was met with a community on the brink of spiritual collapse. The Enlightenment had caused many to stray from traditional observance, resulting in a struggle to maintain even the most basic religious practices. There was barely enough people to form a minyan of Shomer Shabbos Jews. But Rav Hirsch's unwavering determination and visionary leadership turned the community into a thriving center of Torah observant Judaism. A key element of his transformational approach was educational reform. He introduced a revolutionary system that combined carefully curated secular studies with rigorous Torah learning, successfully bringing many back to a Torah-based lifestyle while equipping them to confidently engage with the modern world. By emphasizing the importance of both secular and religious education, Rav Hirsch not only improved the lives of his followers, but also positively impacted the entire community. In addition to educational reform, Rav Hirsch also prioritized community engagement. He recognized the value of active participation and personally connected with his congregants to foster a deep appreciation for the beauty and the depth of halachic living, creating a strong sense of unity and belonging. And there was his writings, including his book 19 Letters and his other book Chorev, which articulated a philosophy of Torah im derech eretz, namely the compatibility of Orthodox Judaism with modern life. This approach was a Kedoshim Tiheyu approach. Rav Hirsch worked hard to lift up the spiritual status of his community. He didn't hide in an ivory tower. He was proactive and determined, and he was successful in providing much-needed spiritual guidance that revitalized his community and left a lasting legacy. Two stories about Rav Samson Raphael Hirsch that will captivate and inspire you. One story about this esteemed leader occurred when he was confronted by a member of his community or somebody in the community at large about the religious practices that he was reintroducing and enforcing. The man was upset about the emphasis on stricter Shabbos observance, which he said was exaggerated and unnecessary. Instead of responding harshly, Rav Hirsch invited him to his home for Shabbos dinner. At the dinner table, Rav Hirsch engaged his guest with warmth and shared insights into the significance of each tradition and ritual. Through his words and through his actions, he demonstrated the beauty and serenity of the Shabbos experience, evoking a sense of peace and spirituality. As they discussed the challenges facing the community, Rav Hirsch's patience and personal connection bridged the gap and healed the division. The guests left with a renewed perspective on Shabbos and the potential for spiritual growth through adherence to Shabbos laws. He became one of Rav Hirsch's greatest advocates and ambassadors, further spreading the message of aspirational growth. But that's not the only remarkable story about Rav Hirsch's leadership and efforts to improve the community's Kedoshim Tiheyu credentials. In the 1850s, when the local government in Frankfurt proposed a law that would limit Jewish education by forcing children to attend public schools, Rav Hirsch understood the dire threat this posed to the preservation of Jewish identity. Taking bold action, he organized a coalition of rabbis and community leaders to oppose the legislation. Rav Hirsch personally articulated the community's concerns to the authorities, emphasizing the importance of maintaining Jewish schools that could provide both religious and secular education. Through his efforts, the offending law was not passed, securing the community's right to educate their children in Jewish schools. This victory not only preserved Jewish education in Frankfurt, but also inspired other communities across Germany to take similar stands. Then there was the Chofetz Chaim, whose impact reached far beyond his immediate community, the tiny Kehillah of Radin. He saw the Jewish people as a whole, as his community, and his influence was indeed global. Through his seminal works, the Chofetz Chaim and Shmiras HaLoshen, he provided the tools for individuals and communities to elevate their speech and, by extension, their lives. These texts became foundational in Jewish communities worldwide, transforming how we think about and practice the mitzvah of guarding one's tongue. His teachings on the power of words and the sanctity of speech fostered communities that thrived on positive, constructive communication, directly embodying the essence of Kedoshim Tiheyu. His influence also extended to his personal conduct, which served as a shining example to his students and followers. Despite facing challenging circumstances, the Chofetz Chaim refused to speak ill of others and instead led by example with his own scrupulous adherence to ethical speech. He also took it upon himself to disseminate his teachings through educational outreach, such as letters, personal visits, and the establishment of learning groups, Chofetz Chaim groups. What the Chofetz Chaim did not only showcased his dedication to bettering the moral fabric of his community, but he also allowed his teachings to reach a wider audience and have a lasting impact. Today, the Chofetz Chaim's tireless efforts and teachings continue to shape attitudes towards speech and ethical practice within the Jewish community, cementing his enduring legacy. And now, brace yourself for two riveting stories about the legendary Chofetz Chaim. Hidden away in the ramshackle town of Radin, where was a humble study, overflowing with books and papers, it belonged to the Chofetz Chaim. One day, a young man set out to meet this great rabbi, expecting to be greeted by a grandiose rabbinical court. But to his surprise, he found the Chofetz Chaim sitting alone in his overloaded study, surrounded by his treasured books and papers. Baffled by the simplicity of it all, the young man couldn't help but question the Chofetz Chaim's choice to live so humbly. How could such a renowned figure not indulge in the luxuries and trappings of his status? The Chofetz Chaim responded with wisdom that shook the young man to his core. Telling him of the fleeting nature of material wealth, the Chofetz Chaim emphasized that true greatness was measured not by one's external surroundings, but by conduct and by personal devotion to Torah and to mitzvot. The Chofetz Chaim embodied this truth with every fiber of his being, and he set a powerful example for all who crossed his path. Indeed, the encounter left a lasting impact on the young man who had come seeking grandeur, but instead found a deeper, more authentic model of Jewish leadership. Here's another Chofetz Chaim story. A visitor arrived in Radin seeking guidance on how to enhance his spiritual journey. But rather than providing complex instructions and a sophisticated range of mitzvahs and holy tasks, the Chofetz Chaim seized this opportunity to impart a valuable lesson about the significance of every mitzvah, no matter how small. Despite his vast knowledge, the Chofetz Chaim chose to focus on the seemingly simple commandment of mezuzah, putting a mezuzah on your door, on your doorpost. He revealed the profound spiritual implications of this daily ritual of having a mezuzah on your door, illustrating how it contributes to the sanctity of the home and, by extension, the individual's life. The visitor left with a newfound appreciation for the importance of every mitzvah, understanding that each one plays a crucial role in building a holy life. The example of a small mitzvah, mezuzah, that matters, made him value the bigger and harder mitzvahs even more. Inspired by what the Chofetz Chaim had told him, the visitor committed to observing mitzvahs with renewed diligence, all mitzvahs, striving to infuse holiness into every aspect of his life. And most importantly, he told over the story of his encounter with the Chofetz Chaim countless times over his long life, inspiring thousands of others to join the Kedoshim Tiheyu project, to be part of a community that aspires to spiritual greatness every step of the way. And finally, a story about Rabbi Aaron Kotler, a man whose name is synonymous with the revival of Torah study in America after the destruction of the Holocaust. With his piercing intellect and unwavering determination, he blazed a trail for future generations to follow. The mere mention of his name evokes a sense of awe and admiration. Rabbi Kotler's journey began in the aftermath of the Holocaust, when he faced the daunting task of transplanting the rigorous Talmudic study from the destroyed centers of Europe to the shores of America. Undeterred by the challenges ahead, he forged ahead with a vision and a mission. With a select few students by his side, Rabbi Kotler laid the foundation for what would become the largest center of Jewish learning in the world, Beis Medrash Gavoya in Lakewood, New Jersey. His teachings were not only intellectually stimulating, but also imbued with a deep sense of community responsibility and creating communities of aspirational Jews. And beyond the walls of the yeshiva, Rabbi Kotler's influence extended to the wider community. Through Torah Masorah, he inspired the establishment of Jewish schools across the United States of America. Through Chinuch Atzmoi, he did something unbelievable for Orthodox schools in the newly established state of Israel. Rav Aaron Kotler lived and breathed the Kedoshim Tiheyu communal approach, and he left a lasting impression on all who crossed his path. Even after his passing in 1962, his legacy continued through his son, Reb Shneur Kotler, and later his grandson, Reb Malkiel Kotler, and their many descendants. The impact of his efforts was felt far beyond the walls of Lakewood Yeshiva, shaping Jewish education and observance across the country. Rav Aaron Kotler may no longer be with us, but his teachings and his spirit live on, inspiring generations to come. Let me conclude by saying this. As we contemplate the impactful example of Rav Samson Raphael Hirsch, the Chofetz Chaim, and Rav Aaron Kotler, we are reminded of the profound imperative of Kedoshim Tiheyu. You shall be holy. And you is not an individual you. It is in the plural. It means all of us pulling in the same direction together. These luminaries did not simply preach about holiness. They actively imbued it into the very essence of their communities, fostering an environment where spiritual and ethical growth could thrive against all odds. Their lives and what they achieved remind us that holiness is not a solitary pursuit, but rather a communal journey, enriched and sustained by each individual's unwavering dedication to live according to the divine standards outlined in our Torah, in a community that does the same. Rav Hirsch revitalized a community teetering on the brink of assimilation by marrying traditional Torah values with modern sensibilities. The Chofetz Chaim, with his foundational works on the sanctity of speech, shaped the moral discourse of communities far beyond his own, teaching us that the words we choose can elevate or degrade our communal and spiritual lives. Rabbi Aaron Kotler, through his indomitable spirit and deep commitment to Torah education, laid the groundwork for a resurgence of rigorous Talmudic scholarship in America, influencing countless lives through his vision of community-based learning. Each of these great leaders demonstrates that holiness is not a solitary pursuit, but a communal journey, one that requires each of us to contribute to an atmosphere where sacred principles guide our collective behavior. By living these values, they didn't just change their communities, they transformed the very way all of us across communities understand our responsibilities to each other and to our faith. Let their lives inspire us to not only strive for personal sanctity, but to foster it within our communities, whether through enhancing our speech, deepening our learning, or broadening our engagement with community life. We too can contribute to a world where the call of Kedoshim Tiheyu is not just an aspiration, but a reality. Let us draw inspiration from the legacy of these great mentors of the past generation to elevate not only our actions, but also our surroundings, cultivating a world where holiness is not an empty ambition, but a tangible reality. By embracing the call to be holy, Kedoshim Tiheyu, we honor their memory and perpetuate their mission, the mission of Kedoshim Tiheyu, constructing communities deeply rooted in the sacred teachings of our tradition. I'll leave it here for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. Thank you.